Hello everyone and welcome. I'm Derek Elliott from Dirk.com, and in today's tutorial, which is sponsored by my good friends over at Squarespace, we're going to take a look at creating this sort of moody environment reveal where we've got some volumetrics going on, some sort of fake smoky effects. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's rendered in Eevee, so it doesn't take too long. And yeah, let's go ahead and jump into it. All right, so in my scene here, I have a vehicle model. This is one that I got from Chocofer, which if you are interested in getting products from Chocofer, you can use code DIRK25 for 25% off. But the scene should be set up relatively basic. I have not enabled anything special. So if you are rendering Eevee with a fresh scene with whatever object you put into it, you should have similar settings. We're gonna go through all those. But to get started, I'm gonna go ahead and add in that volume. So I'm gonna do that with a cube, could have been the default cube, and just kind of scale this out to be about the size that our scene will be. So just scaling that on the X and Y, and then maybe bringing the ceiling height up to something like a garage park would be. Something like that looks good. And now so that we can actually see it a little bit better, see our car at least, we're gonna change this to the bounds viewport display. Now I'm gonna wanna go pretty much straight into a rendered view here. So I'm going to set up my viewport with a couple new views. This one is going to be a shader editor where we're going to work with our volume material. And then this one will be a rendered view. So let's go ahead and go into the rendered view there. And again, I am rendering in Eevee. Now I don't want this, well, I guess we can let's just leave it how it is for now. So the next thing I'll do is add a new material to this, and we'll call that Smoky or something like that, or Smoky. That's fine with me. We're going to change this now to a principled volume instead of the principled BSDF. Now, I've done this hundreds of times and I accidentally plugged it into the surface and I wonder why it's not working. This needs to be plugged into the volume. And you'll see that now we have a little bit of a volume going on there. There's some dense smoke here. We can turn off our overlays there so we can see that a little bit better. Now, it's a little bit too dark. One thing is I'll make sure that this is white, and then the density, probably going to want to pull that down quite a bit. Now, to actually, really make the best use of the volumes, you're gonna need some light in your scene. So you can use any type of light. If I just add in a point light here, this is one of the really cool things about volumes is they kind of just add, that light really just spreads out. And you can see, now we've got some kind of cool shadows going on there where the car is kind of casting a shadow with the volume around it. But the light I actually want to use is a sunlight. So I'll go ahead and add that in now. Now, when you're working with a sunlight, it doesn't really matter too much where it is. What's more important is the rotation of it. So let's just set our rotation to something like that. But now we're going to get, same effect. We probably will turn this up quite a bit, maybe to like a 20 or something like that, just so it's really bright. But, we're not really getting a very cool effect here, and that's because we really need to start thinking about our environment. So let's start building out a simple little environment so that we can really start to benefit from what these volumetrics are doing. So I'm going to, let's just add in a plane, and then in edit mode, I'll move that over and rotate that on the y-axis 90 degrees. And I'm going to add in a mirror modifier. The reason I moved in edit mode is so that my origin stayed right in the middle, and our mirror modifier is going to flip that to the other side. I'll also add in a solidify, give this a little bit of thickness. This is just going to be what I use to sort of build out those walls. And while we're in here, might as well add in a little bit of a bevel as well. So let's bump the segments on that up just a little bit. Probably don't need 5. Let's go 4. And that looks good. And let's just build this puppy out a little bit. So move the walls out, maybe all the way to there. Move this back, maybe all the way to there. And then we can move this up, give it some height. I don't know how tall we should make it. A lot of times these garages are kind of like short ceilings. Something like that looks cool. Let's duplicate that and use it for the ceiling. And let's make sure we have our clipping option on. Okay, we got that. And yeah, now you can see kind of, this is where it gets cool. We've kind of got the volume already working for us. So if we rotate this, you can kind of see that, you almost get that corner kind of coming in, but not super cool. So let's add in a little bit more detail here. We can do this right in this object. Let's press Shift D to duplicate this and then scale it on the y-axis, rotate it on the z-axis, and yeah, just kind of start making garage shapes, something like that. I think it'll look pretty cool. Maybe we add another one, make it like a little wider. I don't know. I'm no garage designer, but there is a really cool bar in Austin, a cocktail bar named Garage, which has got garage vibes. Maybe they'd be interested in purchasing this animation. Yeah, just building this out, talking to you while I'm doing it. Take as much time as you want. You do need to be thinking about where your camera's actually going to be though, because I'm just kind of spinning around aimlessly here, and I should probably know, where those shadows are actually landing. So rendering is pretty cool, and making animations and modeling and all sorts of crazy cool Blender things are all pretty cool, but what's really cool? Getting paid to do it. For the past 10 years or so, almost all of my life has been supported by this lovely software called Blender. How did I do it, you might ask? Well, I started with a little thing called a website that I built with a tool called Squarespace. And I can say that having that website single-handedly propelled me from being a little Instagram hobbyist to being an actual freelance designer that could get clients. Getting a website up and running is now easier than ever before with Squarespace. You can use their pre-made templates and sections to build up a site in next to no time that has everything you need to start getting clients of your own. Drag and drop your work straight into the builder, set up a contact form, and watch the inquiries start rolling in. Just kidding, you'll probably have to send people to the site, but where were you sending them before? Instagram? ArtStation? You'd look a lot more professional with a website. Get started today with a site of your own by going over to squarespace.com/Dirk to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Let's get back to it. Let's add in a camera to our scene, but I will first add in an empty. Let's make that a cube, and then I'll add in my camera. Alt-R to reset the rotation, RX90 to make it pointing straight ahead. Let's move it back. And let's parent it to that empty, which I just created. This is how I do most of my camera setups, just so that now if I want to rotate this empty, I can the camera will pan with it. So let's look through that camera over here. Let's move this up a little bit so that our car is kind of in the middle of our scene there. And maybe we bump up the focal length to something like a 150, and we pull the camera back a little bit. And maybe we give this car just a little bit more of an interesting orientation, something like that. Now let's get in a little bit to our settings here. For one, I don't really want to see what's outside the camera, so let's turn on our passport out. I don't know why. I need to Google what that means, but I'm gonna turn all the way up to 1, so we just got black around the outside there. Now let's start making Eevee look a little bit better. We're gonna do that by turning on ambient occlusion, which will sort of darken some areas. Just looks good. We can turn on bloom, not really gonna see it in this particular view, but that'll add some glow, some glare, which looks nice. You can also do that in compositing. Depth of field might be something fun to play with, but don't worry about it for now. Screen space reflections, let's definitely turn that on. And then in the volumetric settings, this is where some of our magic will be happening. We can definitely enable volumetric shadows. And the tile size here, the smaller this is, the more detailed your shadows will be. So try to set that at 2 pixels if you can, but that will impact your render times a little bit. But yeah, the lower you can go here, the better. So 2 pixels is great. You can turn up the samples and stuff if you want, but I didn't notice huge differences there. So it's fine to leave it at the default 64. But again, I'm sure if you turn this down, you'll get faster renders. If you turn it up, you'll probably get slower renders that may be more accurate. But one thing to really pay attention to is this start and end. So basically, Blender's, this value is telling hey, where do you want to start seeing the volumetrics and where should we stop rendering them? Because if they just went for infinity, that wouldn't really work. So the way this works is that now it's starting them 0.1 meters from the camera. And that's right here. So we don't really need to be rendering the volumetrics there because it's out of the view. So we can just drag this up. You could actually measure it. If I move my camera, I'm going to look in the top left here. If I move this forward, you can see that we don't really need them to start till about 13 meters, and we can have it end at about 40 meters. So let's just kind of give that a little extra space. You can also just eyeball it. If you look in the viewport here, just turn it on until you start to see it clipping. So yeah, something like, what did I say, 13? So maybe we'll do 8, and we'll have it end at, and I'll just pull that back until I don't see it. So just a little outside our garage. Now you can see that these look a lot smoother. So Blender is basically kind of chopping that volume into pieces. So you want it to be as tight as possible to your scene so that you're not, if we set this to 600, you'd see that it gets choppy again. Set to 6,000. Gets even choppier. We just got these two big odd rectangles there. Not good. So let's set back to whatever we had, something like 50, and it's looking much nicer. We can also blast the power on this quite a bit more. Maybe we do like, I don't know, let's do like 80. That's looking good. And now we're getting some very nice volumetrics. We can kind of rotate things around here, looking very fancy. But the next thing I want to talk about is how to actually add in sort of that smoky effect. We did name this volume Smoky after all. And the way we're going to do that is by controlling this density value. So what I'll do is press Control T with it selected to add in a couple nodes. That's with the Node Wrangler add-on. You can also just add these manually. I'll have this go to the object input, and I'm going to change this texture to be a noise texture. Now we will have that factor influencing the density. You can cut that off. And right now this is going from, oh boy, okay, so now it's going from 0 to 1. We've got really dense areas. Okay, we can kind of see, sometimes viewing the volumetrics in the viewport can get a little tricky, but you can kind of see we've got our noise texture going on there. But right now this is outputting values of 0 to 1, and 0 is basically nothing, 1 is too dense. So we want to actually map those values to something lower. So we'll add in a converter map range, and we will have it go, maybe we don't want anything 0, we'll do like a 0.01, and then the max, maybe we do like a maybe a 0.24 sounds pretty good. And we want a little bit more contrast here. You could do this with a color ramp, which is a little bit more visual. You can also just kind of pull these values closer together, and you'll start to get a little bit more contrast that way. And something like that I think is working pretty well for me. Now feel free to adjust the scale here. This can be a little bit hard to see in the viewport, so if you want, you can shift control and left click on the map range, but that doesn't work in Eevee, so you go to cycles. Again, that's a Node Wrangler add-on hotkey. If you want to just be able to see your texture kind of work while you're working on it. The reason it wasn't working in Eevee is because we have the object set to bounds instead of textured. If it was textured, you'd be able to see it in Eevee. But I realized that just switching to cycles is an easier way to preview your texture. But yeah, maybe we add in some more detail to this. And maybe you do want to do this while you're in the volumetric view. But just kind of, finding sort of a nice look there, something like that I think looks okay. Let's change this back to Eevee and undo the surface connection. And yeah, now we have kind of a nice smokiness there. We could add a little distortion to it. Again, sort of hard to see right there, but I think something like that will work pretty well. Now we also want to add a little bit of motion to this, and the easiest way to add a little motion to that smoke is by changing this to 4D, and then we can animate this new W slider value we have. That will just kind of like slide our texture around. Let's look at that in cycles. We're going to do this kind of blindly here. Okay, so let's take a look here. So the W value is just going to kind of move that texture, give it just a little bit of natural motion. So now is when I'll start thinking about how long I want my animation to be. And I think 360 frames is going to do pretty well. So at frame 1, let's just insert a keyframe there. And then at frame 360, let's just have it move a decent amount, maybe something like that. And am I 30 frames per second? Yes, I currently am. Let's open up a graph editor here, because I want this to, right now it's gonna start off slow, and then it's gonna kind of get faster because we've got this Bezier curve over here. But I just want that to be a linear motion, so let's do that. I think that's looking good. So yeah, I'm not actually looking at the volume now, but just looking at the texture to kind of affect that. Maybe it's a little too much distortion. Let's turn that down a tad. That looks good. And I also want the texture to look like it's kind of blowing a little bit. So that's going to be negative Y value. So let's have it, negative X value. Insert a single keyframe there. And then at frame 360, we have it blowing to the right, maybe about that much. Insert a keyframe. Let's make this a linear interpolation as well. So now we sort of have our blowing smoke. Now this, again, is going to be a little hard to see in the viewport because Eevee doesn't render the volume super fast. So little details like the texture are going to be kind of hard to see. But if we just scrub along there, We can see there is some motion. We might need to tweak it more later, but I think we'll probably be in decent shape. It does feel a little fast, but we might have to mess with that. But what else do we want to do? I think we should animate the sun. So I'm thinking maybe this starts, and maybe it's kind of plain right now. Maybe this should be like blue. Oh yeah, that is something like that's pretty cool. Should we like blast this more? Should we do like 800? Oh yeah, I'm liking that. Which if you have this bloom option, now we're getting those highlights. Looking very snazzy. Let's add a little animation to this. I think I want to start with the car like not really being very visible. Maybe something like that. Insert a keyframe. And then I'm actually going to split this into 2 shots. So let's say on frame 241, it switches over. So maybe we have kind of come across here. We have a little detail on the side. And then maybe it kind of comes back around to, I don't know, right there. Let's see what this looks like. Kind of comes around, get a little detail on the side. Maybe we rotate our car a little bit so that we can see a little bit more of the side here. I'm kind of thinking like if this was like an advertisement or something, you know, you want to reveal the silhouette first, and then you see just a little detail. And then that second shot is where we'll actually kind of reveal the car, and that would be on frame 241. So this is looking pretty solid. Maybe we add a little animation to the camera as well. It's getting hard to look down into this thing here. It is annoying though in Eevee, like if you change something to be viewport display bounds, it doesn't render it, which is really annoying. Because in cycles you can have it be bounds over here, but then you'll still see it over there. Anyways, my small gripes. So we've got the sun animated. We've got the fog moving around. Let's animate the camera. Let's have it kind of maybe moving out, because I want the second shot to be moving in. So let's have it end maybe right. I guess if we're gonna have it moving out, let's do frame 1, kind of right there, insert a keyframe, and then frame 240 will be kind of moving out ever so slightly, something like that. Let's make this linear. So now we're kind of zooming out. And let's also just rotate the camera a little bit. So I'm gonna grab my empty somewhere in there. There it is. And let's have it maybe start. Oh wait, that's the wrong one. Let's have it start right. Maybe just have it start right there, 14 degrees. And then have it end right like there. So it's kind of moving the opposite direction of the light. Let's make that linear as well. Real cool, real cool. Now you're probably going to consistently need to like adjust your environment to get it looking, get the shadows in the right places. Maybe we pull this in a little bit, pull this over. Kind of want to get a little bit more light on the car there. So maybe make this duplicate over. I think in the original file I was working with too, I actually added in like some like little pillars or something coming on the outside, just to give it a little bit more like detail. Just cast some more shadows. That's nice, a little shadow right there. Okay, cool. We can also add in, just so we get a little bit more perspective, maybe we add in some little pillars around the car so it's kind of like parked between them, just so that when we actually do that rotation, we've got a little bit more parallax effect there. I think that's looking pretty good. Okay, that's looking nice. Now, what else do we want to do? We can add in a little bit of texture to this ground. Let's call this the floor. And then I will add in, this is just really simple little procedural texture. Let's add in a texture, noise texture, have this go into the object, and then we can make this floor black. And what am I seeing there? Is that just the edge of it? I think I need to pull this out more. Yeah, let's pull that out a lot more. That was ugly, that band right there. So texture, 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 noise texture. Let's add in a vector bump. And now we should have some bumpiness on the floor. And we can make this a lot less, we can make it sort of shiny. That would probably be a vibe. It's really, really dark though. I guess I did make this black. I kind of want to see my reflection. Where's my reflections? Screen space reflections are on. Maybe I need more light in the scene. Okay, bump is probably way too strong right now. Let's do 0.1. Turn the strength down. Where's my texture? Where's my texture? I guess I can kind of see it there. Maybe we need to have this angle be even like more severe so the light's coming across more. Let's turn on high bit depth, shadows, indirect lighting. I don't think we're messing with that. Volumetric lighting, volumetric shadows. Now, this is still feeling a little bit gray because I realized I did not turn off my world. I want that to just be totally black. And let's see where we're at here. Okay, we're getting a little bit of better visibility on that floor. Maybe we turn the strength down more. Oh, this needs to be plugged into the height. Gosh, no wonder. I was like, what is going on? This is not working. It needs to be plugged into the height. I do that all the time. It's so annoying. Okay, so factor into the height. Now we can turn the strength back up so we can actually see it. There's our little bump texture right there. We can bring the scale up, down, all around, whatever you want till it looks nice. We actually have another noise texture influence the roughness. That would be pretty cool. Let's plug this into the vector. Factor into the roughness. Let's do a map range to just control that range. So at the shiniest, maybe it's a 0.1. At the roughest, maybe it's a 0.3. And let's just change the scale on this so that it's not lined up exactly with our bump map. And maybe the bump map needs to get a lot bigger. Bring the scale down. I can't see it. It's too dark in this stupid garage. I'm trying to make it all moody, and that's, of course, making it difficult to see what's going on. Let's add some detail to this, add some roughness. Just trying to make a little bit of an interesting floor here. Again, so that we kind of feel that motion a little bit better. Okay, now we've got this guy back here that's way too distracting. Let's move this back in a little bit. Or maybe just move it like over GX. So we still get the shadow, but it's not visible, at least in that first shot. Okay, now we're starting to get pretty vibey. I'm liking the way that looks. So what else do we want to do? Let's add in sort of a second shot here. And I think for that second shot, I want to kind of just be like a big full reveal of the entire vehicle. So that's going to happen at frame 241. And rather than using a second camera, I'm going to use the same camera, same sun, same scene, and just animate some values. So at frame 241, let's make sure we have a keyframe for the X and Z rotation. And then let's have it point straight down. So X0, Z0, insert keyframe. So then that boom is straight down. Now we actually need somewhere to like see through. So let's add in like a window, a little skylight here to this. Let's just add some edge loops and delete this face. And then boom, we have a beam of light blasting straight down. Now this would be like sort of this flash effect would be something that you would normally add in like post-production, but why not do it right in Blender when we've got these powerful volumetrics to work with? Now I do want that to move back over the car, and I could do that by rotating the sun, but we can just move the window in this concrete car park, something you cannot do in real life, but this is not real life. This is Blender. We can do whatever we want. So I'm going to have that move with a shape key. So I'm just going to add in a shape key, and maybe this moves back, kind of revealing the car slowly until it goes back kind of behind the car. So now I can animate that value. So we'll have it start with it blasting right overhead, kind of in front of our view, blocking everything out, grand reveal, what's going on? Epileptics, look away, I apologize. And then at frame 360, we have that window kind of move back. And we can just have that be a linear motion, I think. So boom, blasted. Very cool. Now I do want the camera angle to be a little bit different. So maybe at frame 240, it's right there. And then frame 241, we're looking back straight ahead, insert keyframe, and we'll have the camera sort of dolly inwards. So maybe it starts right there. And at the end, it kind of goes to right there. Very subtle. And we can probably move this down just a tad so our car stays nice and centered. That's cool. Now it looks a little bit like our car's floating, maybe. Do we have contact shadows on? Let's turn on contact shadows. Sometimes that'll help with that. Okay, cool. Boom, blast of light. And just to add a little bit more vibe in here, I did also add in a few spotlights. So let's add those in now. And I'm going to just kind of put those sort of behind the car. Maybe like right here. And let's point it at the car. Something like that. These will need to be red because that's the vibe, and they'll need to be a lot more powerful. Let's try like a 900. Let's try like a 9,000. Oh yeah, that's looking good. Now I do want this light to fade out a little bit. It's like it's going to take away from our red effect there. So maybe at frame 240, we have it, you know, have its big, huge 800 power. And then at frame 241, I guess it can still be 800, but then I quickly want it to start kind of dimming. Maybe by frame 340, it's totally gone down to 0. Let's see what this looks like. Blast, dim, full car reveal, red light. Should the sun have a little bit more angle so we get a softer shadow there? I don't know about that. Because I don't really like this harsh line. Maybe we do though. So we want the harsh lines here, and then frame 241, maybe we give this a little bit of an angle. So that the angle will just essentially make the sun larger so that we have softer shadows. So now if I actually let go there and let it render, yeah, it's a little bit softer, which I think looks nice. Okay, so that's cool. We've got our red vibe light there. Let's press Alt-D and add another one to the other side. Alt-D so that it's linked. Now I don't want to actually see the point there of it. So let's turn on contact shadows for these. Let's turn the blending up, and then, you know, the radius maybe could be a little bit bigger so we kind of get some interesting reflections. And let's just kind of find good places for these. Maybe like back here or something. Maybe they should be a little bit higher up like that. They don't have to be exactly symmetrical. We're just trying to highlight the vehicle a little bit here, as one would working for a vehicle company. Okay, something like that looks cool. Now we want these ones to fade out too, and we don't want them on in this part. So let's just on frame 240, they'll be 0. Oops, 0. What the heck? 0. Insert keyframe, and then frame 241, we'll have them blast on 9,000. And then they will also fade, but maybe they fade a little bit later. So let's have it fade down to like 200, or maybe like 400, or maybe like 900. Insert a keyframe. So they'll fade down there slowly. We need a little bit more light on them though. Maybe we bring this keyframe. Wow, that's okay. 5. Okay, maybe they don't. Maybe they just go down to here. And maybe right here they're at, what were they before? 9,000. Maybe this is like 6,000. Let's replace the keyframe so we still have the light, maybe up to like right here. And then they'll fade to maybe like 800. And then we'll have them kind of cut off right there at the end. So then we'll be 0. So we fade to black. Cool, that looks nice. Now we're gonna have some motion with our smoke. Let's check that smoke again. I'm gonna swap back to cycles view, and let's preview this really quick. Oh yeah, that's looking nice in cycles. Let's preview the texture here. Okay, so I think it might be moving too fast. Let's go into this mapping node and just pull this up. Okay, that's a little bit slower. I think I like that. Now, it would be cool if the smoke kind of like blew really quick right here. So maybe at frame 241, let's insert a keyframe. And then maybe this is like a Bezier because we'll want it to slow back down. So right here, we'll have it get like really fast for a second and then sort of slow back down. So it's kind of like boom, blowing. We need more motion there, more motion. Give me more motion. Blowing quickly and then slows back down. There's like a little bit of a breezy, easy breezy, beautiful right there. Let's change back to cycles. Uncheck that. Oh, change back to Eevee. Yeah, okay. So we're getting blasted, boom. And then it fades out. Okay, I think I gotta wrap this up. This is a pretty fun one. I hope that you guys have some fun working on your own little light ray designs using Eevee. This renders pretty quickly. As far as actually rendering it, again, the settings that are default are pretty good. You know, you can turn this up if you want more samples. You don't really need to though, but just be mindful of your volumetrics. Make sure that this is in a good place and that you have some of these options enabled. Bloom is kind of a preference, but yeah, just select an output folder. I'm gonna go ahead and save my file now. I'll select an output folder and then I will go ahead and render it and I'll put that up on the screen. Let's do frame 4 live and we will do frames, yay. And then accept that, save your file, and then you can render it to JPEGs. Don't listen to Polyfjord telling you about EXRs. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm just kidding, JPEGs are just great for my small brain. So we're gonna render the animation, let it fly. I've got a 4090, so it does pretty quick renders. We'll take a look at it, but thanks for being here. Like and subscribe. The full file of the one in the intro will be on Patreon without the car file, unfortunately. But if you do want to get that for 25% off, you can go to Chokifer and use code DIRK25. But yeah, thanks for being here. Like and subscribe. Excited to see what everyone comes up with, what you're rendering, where you're using these light rays, what kind of product applications maybe you can think of for them. But really cool effect, lots of fun. So thanks again. I'll see you next time.